Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring the world of deep work.
Yeah.
And no, I don't mean like spelunking or underwater welding.
Right.
We're talking about the kind of intense focus that can help you thrive
Absolutely.
in our increasingly distracting world.
Yeah, that's right. And our guide for this deep dive is Cal Newport,
Right.
computer science professor and author who's become, something of a productivity guru in the digital age. His book, Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World, offers a framework for achieving what he calls deep work, a concept that might just revolutionize the way you approach your work and even your life.
Now, I have to admit, the idea of deep work sounds intriguing, but also a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all bombarded with distractions these days.
Right.
How can anyone achieve that level of focus when you've got emails pinging, notifications buzzing, and the endless scroll of social media beckoning?
That's exactly the challenge Newport addresses. He argues that deep work, which he defines as professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit, is becoming increasingly rare in our hyper-connected world, and yet it's also becoming increasingly valuable.
It's almost like a hidden superpower that most people have forgotten how to access.
Precisely. Think of it this way. If you can train your mind to focus deeply, you can master complex skills faster, produce higher quality work, and ultimately become more valuable in the knowledge economy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's get down to brass tacks.
Sure.
What exactly distinguishes deep work from all the other stuff we do?
Right.
The emails, the meetings, the endless scrolling.
Newport contrasts deep work with what he calls shallow work,
Okay.
which are those tasks we often perform while distracted. Think answering emails, attending routine meetings, or mindlessly browsing social media.
Uh-huh.
These activities rarely produce new value and are often easily replicated.
I'm starting to see the distinction here, and I'm also starting to feel a little guilty about all the time I spend in shallow work mode.
Don't worry, you're not alone.
Okay.
Most of us have fallen into the trap of constant connectivity,
Right.
mistakenly believing that being busy equates to being productive. But Newport argues that it's the quality of our attention, not the quantity of our time, that truly matters.
This reminds me of something I read about the psychologist Carl Jung, who built a stone tower in the woods
Oh, wow.
just to escape distractions and focus on his writing.
Wow.
It sounds extreme, but it highlights how important deep work can be
Yeah.
for those who want to achieve truly groundbreaking results.
It's a great example of how seriously some of history's most innovative thinkers have taken this idea of focused concentration. And it's not just about achieving extraordinary things. Deep work can also bring a sense of fulfillment and meaning to even the most mundane tasks.
So how do we apply this concept of deep work in our own lives? Where do we even begin?
Well, Newport offers a range of strategies and philosophies for incorporating deep work into your daily routine.
Okay.
One of the most interesting ideas is that there are different approaches to scheduling deep work.
Oh.
And the key is to find one that aligns with your personality and work style.
Okay. I'm all ears. What are these different approaches?
He outlines 4 main philosophies: monastic, bimodal, rhythmic, and journalistic.
Okay.
Think of them as different paths leading to the same destination, a state of deep focus.
I'm already intrigued. Let's unpack each of these philosophies.
Okay.
Starting with the monastic approach. What's that all about?
The monastic approach is about eliminating shallow obligations to the greatest extent possible, allowing you to focus almost exclusively on deep work.
Okay.
This is the approach favored by writers, researchers, and anyone who needs long stretches of uninterrupted time to produce their best work.
So basically, it's about becoming a hermit of sorts, cutting yourself off from the distractions of the world.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be effective, but also pretty challenging in our always-on culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
Right.
But if you have the discipline and the flexibility, it can be a powerful way to achieve remarkable results. Think of writers like Neil Stephenson, who famously has a strict no-email policy, or J.K. Rowling, who checked into a luxurious hotel to finish writing the final Harry Potter book.
Those are some pretty extreme examples.
Yeah.
But I get the point. What about the bimodal approach?
Sure.
Is that a bit more realistic for the average person?
Absolutely. The bimodal philosophy involves dividing your time into distinct chunks,
Okay.
dedicating some periods exclusively to deep work,
Mm.
while leaving the rest open to everything else.
So it's like switching between two different modes of working deep focus
Yeah.
and then handling all the shallow tasks in one go.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Think of it like a scientist who spends several months conducting intensive research in the lab and then switches gears to teaching and administrative duties during the academic semester.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're essentially creating dedicated blocks of time where you can truly immerse yourself in a project without distractions.
Exactly. And this approach can be particularly effective for those who work on projects with clear deadlines
Right.
or who need to balance deep work with other responsibilities.
Okay, so we've got the monastic approach for the hardcore focus seekers
Right.
and the bimodal approach for those who need a bit more flexibility.
Yeah.
What about the rhythmic philosophy? What's the rhythm here?
The rhythmic approach is all about establishing a regular routine
Okay.
that incorporates deep work into your schedule, even if it's just for short bursts of time each day.
Oh.
Think of it like a musician practicing scales or an athlete doing daily drills.
So instead of trying to carve out huge chunks of time, you're focusing on consistency and building a habit.
Exactly. Even 30 minutes of dedicated focus each morning can yield significant results over time. The key is to make deep work a non-negotiable part of your daily routine.
This approach sounds a lot more manageable than the other two.
Yeah.
It's about making deep work a sustainable practice, something you can integrate into your life
Right.
without having to drastically overhaul your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've covered monastic, bimodal, and rhythmic.
Right.
That leaves us with the journalistic approach. What's the scoop on this one?
The journalistic approach is all about fitting deep work in whenever you can, seizing those pockets of time that emerge throughout the day.
Okay.
It's a more flexible and opportunistic approach, ideal for those with unpredictable schedules
Okay.
or those who thrive on spontaneity.
So this is for the deep work multitaskers.
Yeah.
Those who can switch into focus mode at a moment's notice.
You could say that. Think of a journalist who can write a compelling article in the midst of a bustling newsroom,
Right.
or a surgeon who can maintain laser focus during a complex operation.
This approach resonates with me. It acknowledges that life doesn't always offer us perfect conditions for deep work, but we can still find those moments to dive in and make progress.
It's about being adaptable and making the most of the time you have available, even if it's just for 15 minutes here or 30 minutes there.
Okay, I'm getting a much clearer picture of these different deep work philosophies now.
Great.
But I imagine it's not just about choosing an approach and hoping for the best.
Right.
There must be some practical strategies involved, right?
Absolutely. In the next part, we'll dive into some specific techniques for ritualizing deep work, embracing boredom, and taming those digital distractions.
Okay.
But for now, I'd be curious to know which of these philosophies resonates most with you. What approach do you think might work best for your work style and personality?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
I think I'm drawn to a combination of the rhythmic and journalistic approaches.
Uh.
The idea of building a daily habit of deep work appeals to me. But I also know that my schedule can be unpredictable, so I need to be flexible and adaptable. What about you?
I tend to lean towards the bimodal approach. I find that having dedicated blocks of time for deep work allows me to fully immerse myself in a project without feeling the pressure of other responsibilities.
Mhm.
But it's certainly a personal preference, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation so far.
Yeah, me too.
I'm already feeling inspired to reclaim my focus and embrace the power of deep work.
Me too. And I think our listeners are well on their way to discovering the transformative potential of deep work in their own lives. We'll be back soon to delve deeper into specific strategies and techniques.
So we've explored these different philosophies for scheduling deep work.
Right.
Now I'm curious about the practical side of things.
Sure.
How do we actually create the right environment and mindset for deep work to flourish?
One powerful technique is what Newport calls ritualizing your deep work practice.
Oh.
It's about designing a set of routines and habits that signal to your brain that it's time to shift into deep focus mode.
Okay, so it's about creating a sort of deep work ritual.
Right.
What kinds of things are we talking about here?
It could be as simple as having a designated workspace,
Okay.
whether it's a dedicated home office or a quiet corner in a coffee shop. Or maybe it's about establishing a pre-work routine, like clearing your desk,
Right.
closing unnecessary tabs on your computer,
Mhm.
or putting on noise-canceling headphones.
It's interesting how these seemingly small details can have such a big impact on our ability to focus.
Absolutely.
I know that I personally find it much easier to concentrate
Yeah.
when I'm in a clean and organized environment.
Exactly. And these rituals don't have to be elaborate or time-consuming.
Right.
Even something as simple as lighting a candle or brewing a cup of tea can help you transition into a deep work state.
It's about creating a sense of intentionality and setting the stage for focused concentration.
Right.
And I imagine these rituals can evolve over time as you learn what works best for you.
Absolutely. It's a process of experimentation and refinement. The key is to be mindful of the things that help you focus and to incorporate those elements into your deep work ritual.
This reminds me of the story about J.K. Rowling checking into a fancy hotel to finish writing the last Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
She needed that change of scenery and that sense of ritual to get into the right headspace for deep work.
It's a great example of how even the most successful creators sometimes need to make a conscious effort to separate themselves from distractions and create a space that's conducive to deep work.
Right.
But remember, it doesn't always have to involve grand gestures.
So sometimes it's about the small, consistent habits that help us shift into deep work mode.
Yeah.
But even with the rituals in place, I think many of us struggle with something else.
Right.
Our relationship with boredom.
Yes.
We're so used to constant stimulation that the idea of sitting with our own thoughts can feel almost unbearable.
That's a really important point. And Newport argues that one of the keys to mastering depth work is to embrace boredom, or at least to become more comfortable with it.
This sounds counterintuitive. Why would we want to embrace boredom? Isn't that the enemy of productivity?
Well, think of it this way. Our brains are wired to seek out novelty and stimulation.
Okay.
Every notification, every email, every social media update triggers a little dopamine rush,
Right.
making it hard to resist the constant pull of distractions.
Oh, so we're basically addicted to distraction.
In a sense, yes. And just like any addiction, breaking free requires a conscious effort and a willingness to endure some discomfort.
Right.
That's where embracing boredom comes in.
Okay, so how do we go about embracing boredom? It sounds like a recipe for falling asleep at our desks.
It's not about literally being bored.
Like
It's about training your mind to resist distractions and to find value in moments of quiet contemplation. Newport calls this productive meditation.
Productive meditation. I'm intrigued. What does that involve?
It's about using downtime.
Yeah.
Those moments when you're commuting, walking, or even waiting in line to think deeply about a problem or project. Instead of reaching for your phone, you allow your mind to wander, to make connections, to explore different possibilities.
It's like giving your subconscious a chance to work on things in the background.
Yeah.
I know that some of my best ideas have come to me when I've been away from my desk, out for a walk, or even just taking a shower.
Exactly. And those moments of insight often emerge when we allow our minds to disconnect from the constant stream of information and stimulation.
So embracing boredom is really about cultivating a different relationship with our thoughts and our attention.
Right.
Instead of constantly seeking external stimulation, we're learning to find value in the quiet spaces between those distractions.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that boredom, or at least the discomfort we often associate with it, can actually be a catalyst for creativity and deeper thinking.
It's like building a mental muscle. The more we practice resisting distractions, the stronger our focus becomes.
Precisely. And the skill of focusing deeply, of resisting the allure of shallow diversions, is arguably one of the most valuable assets you can cultivate in the digital age.
But let's be honest, even with the best rituals and the most boredom-embracing mindset, there's still this massive obstacle that we all face.
Sure.
The internet.
Right.
It's a distraction machine designed to keep us hooked on a constant stream of information and entertainment.
You're absolutely right. The internet is both an incredible tool and a potent source of distraction.
Yeah.
And that's why Newport emphasizes the need to be more intentional about how we use technology.
So it's not about abandoning the internet entirely.
Right.
It's about using it more strategically and setting boundaries to prevent it from hijacking our attention.
Exactly. One strategy he suggests is scheduling specific times for internet use and then staying completely disconnected outside those blocks.
This sounds a bit extreme, but I can see the logic.
Yeah?
It's about creating clear boundaries between the online world and the offline world
Right.
and preventing those digital distractions from bleeding into our deep work time.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we interact with technology. We don't have to be slaves to notifications and algorithms.
Right.
We can reclaim control of our attention and decide when and how we engage with the digital world.
This reminds me of the concept of digital minimalism, which encourages us to be more intentional about the technology we allow into our lives.
Yeah.
It's about choosing quality over quantity and
Mhm.
focusing on the tools that truly enhance our lives rather than distract us from them.
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights the importance of being mindful of our digital habits.
Right.
It's so easy to fall into the trap of passively consuming information and entertainment,
hmm
but it's in those moments of intentional creation and deep focus that we truly thrive.
So scheduling internet use is one way to tame the digital distraction monster.
Right.
What other strategies does Newport suggest?
One particularly challenging but potentially transformative idea is to consider quitting social media, at least temporarily.
A social media fast. That's a bold suggestion,
It is.
especially in a world where social media seems so deeply ingrained in our lives.
It's certainly not for everyone.
Yeah.
But Newport argues that even a 30-day break from social media can be incredibly revealing.
Hmm.
It allows you to step back and observe how those platforms are affecting your mood, your productivity, and your overall sense of well-being.
It's like hitting the reset button on your digital habits
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to reevaluate your relationship with social media.
Exactly. You might discover that you don't miss it as much as you thought you would, or you might realize that certain platforms are genuinely valuable to you,
Right.
while others are just distractions.
I'm starting to see the value in this.
Yeah.
It's not about demonizing social media, but about becoming more aware of how it's influencing our lives and making conscious choices about how we engage with it.
Precisely. And even if you decide not to quit social media entirely, this experiment can help you identify the platforms that are truly serving you and the ones that are simply draining your time and energy.
So we've got scheduling internet use and considering a social media fast.
Right.
What other digital detox tips does Newport have up his sleeve?
One of the most powerful strategies is to establish a strict end to your workday, a
Okay.
time when you completely disconnect from work and allow yourself to recharge.
This is something I personally struggle with.
Yeah,
It's so easy to let work bleed into evenings and weekends,
right.
especially with the constant accessibility of email and messaging apps.
But Newport argues that having a clear separation between work time and personal time is essential for both productivity and well-being.
It's about setting boundaries and respecting the need for downtime, both for our mental health and for our ability to focus when we are working.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding burnout.
Right.
It's about allowing your subconscious mind to process information, to make connections, and to generate creative insights.
I've definitely had the experience of struggling with a problem all day, only to have the solution come to me when I'm relaxing in the evening or
Yeah.
even waking up the next morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's like our brains need that downtime to do their best work.
That's exactly right. And when we allow ourselves to fully disconnect from work, we're giving our minds the space they need to recharge and to operate at their peak capacity.
So it's not just about being more productive during our work hours.
Right.
It's about creating a more sustainable and fulfilling work-life balance overall.
Precisely. And it's in that balance that we often find the greatest clarity, creativity, and joy, both in our work and in our lives.
Okay, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the practical strategies for cultivating deep work.
Right.
We've talked about ritualizing our practice,
Yeah.
embracing boredom, taming digital distractions, and
Mhm.
setting boundaries between work and personal time.
Uh-huh.
I'm already feeling inspired to make some changes in my own life.
Me too. And I think our listeners are well equipped to start experimenting with these strategies and discovering the transformative power of deep work.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear what you think is the most important takeaway from all of this. What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember as they embark on their own deep work journey?
Well, I think for me, the most valuable takeaway is that deep work is not just about productivity.
Right.
It's about living a more intentional and fulfilling life.
Yeah, I agree.
It's about choosing to focus on the things that truly matter and resisting the constant pull of distractions.
I completely agree. And you know what's so empowering about Newport's message is that deep work is a skill that anyone can develop
Right.
with practice and commitment.
Hmm.
It's not about having some innate talent
Right.
or being a certain type of person. It's about making a conscious choice to cultivate a deeper level of focus
Okay.
in your work and in your life.
So it's not just about working harder.
Right.
It's about working differently.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our attention is a finite resource
Okay.
and that we need to protect it from the constant barrage of distractions that we face in the digital age. It's about being more mindful of how we spend our time and energy.
and making sure that we're investing those precious resources in the things that will bring us the greatest rewards,
Hmm.
both professionally and personally.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
But I think a lot of people might be listening to this and thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but where do I even start? I'm so
Mm.
overwhelmed with distractions. I don't even know where to begin.
That's a completely understandable feeling.
Right.
And the good news is that you don't have to make drastic changes overnight.
Okay.
Newport emphasizes the importance of starting small
Hmm.
and experimenting with different strategies to find what works best for you.
So it's about taking baby steps
Yeah.
and gradually building those deep work muscles.
Exactly. Maybe you start by scheduling just 30 minutes of uninterrupted focus time each morning. Or
Okay.
perhaps you commit to a 30-day social media fast
Hmm.
to see how it impacts your productivity and well-being. The key is to choose one strategy that resonates with you
Yeah.
and to make it a consistent part of your routine.
I love that idea of experimenting and finding what works. It's
Yeah.
about taking ownership of your deep work journey
Right.
and customizing it to fit your unique needs and circumstances.
That's right. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to deep work.
Right.
What works for one person might not work for another. It's about being willing to try different things, to adjust your strategies as needed, and to be patient with yourself along the way.
This reminds me of a story in the book about a guy named Jason Ben, who quit his job as a financial consultant to learn how to code.
Oh, wow.
He basically locked himself in a room with no computer,
Really?
just textbooks and note cards,
Oh,
and forced himself to focus intensely on learning the fundamentals of programming.
it sounds like a pretty extreme approach.
It was.
Did it work?
It did. He ended up becoming the top student in his class at a prestigious coding boot camp and landed a lucrative job at a tech startup.
That's great.
It's an incredible example of what's possible when you commit to deep work and create the right environment for focused concentration.
That's an inspiring story. And it highlights the point that deep work is not just about achieving external success.
Hmm.
It's about pushing yourself to grow and to learn and to become the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important message for our listeners to take away from this.
Yeah.
Deep work is not just a productivity hack. It's a pathway to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
I couldn't agree more. It's about reclaiming your attention,
Right.
focusing on the things that truly matter, and creating work that you're proud of. And it's about finding that sense of flow and
Yeah.
deep satisfaction
Right.
that comes from immersing yourself in a challenging and engaging task.
So if our listeners are feeling inspired to embark on their own deep work journey, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
I would say start today. Don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect conditions.
Hmm.
Choose one small step you can take right now to create more space for deep work in your life.
Okay.
Maybe it's silencing your notifications for an hour, creating a designated workspace,
Uh-huh.
or scheduling a 30-minute block of time for focused work. The key is to take action and to start building that deep work habit.
That's great advice. And I think it's important to remember that deep work is a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely.
It's something we cultivate over time through consistent effort and a willingness to experiment and learn.
Absolutely. And it's a journey that's well worth taking.
Yeah.
Because when we master the art of deep work, we unlock our full potential, both as creators and as human beings.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to our listeners, we challenge you to embrace the power of deep work and to discover the incredible things you can achieve when you focus your attention on what truly matters.
Until next time, keep diving deep.